Greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Dale Barcy. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. So, here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, I have the very great pleasure of welcoming Todd Angelucci from Connecticut, USA. And here are some of the hats that Todd has worn. Todd has been a former army medic, a former critical care nurse, a medical device salesperson. He's the author of Unlocking Your Inner Hero. He's an entrepreneur. He's created Pathway to Purpose Coaching. He's a newsletter publisher. He publishes The Man's Edge. He is a brain tumor survivor. He describes himself as the hope dealer, dedicated to guiding others impacted by trauma. He's a beacon of hope for others facing adversity too. Todd, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Dale, for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
It's my absolute pleasure. But first, I would love to know what made you become a nurse?
That's a funny story. You think, people would, back in the day, I didn't know what I wanted to be.
Mm,
A lot of nurses like, "Oh, I've had this calling," or that wasn't necessarily my experience. I grew up in a while ago. I've been a nurse, grant almost 30 years now, and I didn't know what I wanted. I was like, oh, I'll be a psych major, and I just kind of floundered around. And then,
mm,
I had some challenges, and so I needed to pay for college, and they said, I went into the army. I did the army. They would pay for me to go to school, and so they asked me like, hey, what do you want to do in the army? And I'm like, well, I like medical stuff. So I basically said, I'd be a medic. So I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that piece. And then I was like, oh, maybe, I didn't want to go to medical school. That thought crossed my mind. I was like, but it was just a huge like life and education commitment.
yeah.
So I grew up in the, 70s and 80s. I was watching like Sylvester Stallone. I saw this like cliffhanger movie where they were flying in rescue helicopters and all this. So and I was like, that's what I want to do. So
Mm,
my goal really was like, all right, I'll go to nursing school, I'll be a nurse, and this is what I want to do. And I did a tract, like I did really well when I came back from the military. They paid for me to go to school, and I got a job in a hospital, which a lot of typical nurses do, and I did the ICU route, and then I got burned out pretty quick. And so I was like, oh, things shifted. I met friends that were making a lot of money in medical devices. So I was like making shifts. And,
yeah.
it was interesting where that was my inspiration really around nursing. And I've done a lot of different things for sure, and we could talk about them. But I think one of the joys of being a nurse is that you can do a lot. And I don't think a lot of people really realize it,
Yeah.
the amount of what you could do.
Yeah, yeah, it's never ending. We used to say that, or at least I used to say, let's put it that way, that the sky is the limit. And the one thing I've come to realize is that really there is no sky. Nursing is like the universe, it's just expanding. It's just expanding.
Yeah, it is.
So you came into nursing uh, at a time you said, you were 30, almost 30 years in. And at a time when there really weren't that many men in the field. How did that challenge you?
That was, it's really interesting because there's a lot of stereotypes around it. I've actually
Hmm.
expanded in this field, this area, in the LinkedIn space where we met. I've created a group that
Hmm.
expands even more for nursing, but males in general, because I have
Yeah,
some experience in this space now. Um, it is a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge. I never took it that way, but in your mind, you're like, all right, I'm a male nurse, right? And like, there's movies that they wrote and joke around
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Uh, like, why didn't you become a doctor? Or there's a lot of, kind of sexual orientation stereotypes for
yeah,
sure. Um,
yeah,
And, there's a lot of female patients that have challenges with guys, and they still do to this day.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that's understandable and respectful. But it to this day, honestly, I did the numbers. There's still only 13%, 13 to 14 maybe tops are male nurses.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not growing. It's growing a little bit. But I'm very interested in the theory around it. I've been doing some work in the background on that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I see that because you talk about men struggling in the nursing profession. Um and even clearly I'm not there, but I can see that. There are two paths that I see or I encountered for men in nursing. Either they kind of plateau and are, as you say, always struggling, or the other part is that they are somehow, depending on where they are, they somehow their trajectory is steeper than their female counterpart. And so as you say, you did some work about it. I don't know why that is exactly. Um, but
Well, it's interesting around this. So the male nursing space is, yeah, some struggle, some
mhm,
kind of go off in different areas. Some try to recreate their masculine space in nursing. Either they'll go like ICU or be ER or
mhm,
CRNA, like the nurse anesthetist, or
yeah, yeah,
perhaps a leadership role that kind of brings forth that and honor some of that energy. I think, I work with men in general now, like, and I work with women because more women are interested because men are struggling all over the world, like,
mhm,
especially in our culture, like, I'm
mhm,
talking US,
mm,
society is really has challenges in the men's space, and it starts because the fathers, there's a lot of fatherless families. We're exposed to a lot of female type of energy, which isn't bad, but in growing up, and there's a lot of like ambiguity in what a male and what masculine roles is. I'm
mm,
not talking about like misogyny. I think
mhm,
there's a
mhm,
lot of misconceptions around what the space is. And so when men don't step into their own selves as much is and understand their masculine space, it causes a lot of problems internally for them, and it
mhm,
spreads to the females in their lives, and the females are affected in a negative way that they're not even really aware of, but you see it in relationships. And the reason why I've become so good at that was in my experience in life, I believe in coaching and mentoring. I invest in it. I grew businesses. I've done a lot of things in my life. And one of my mentors said, "Hey, you should read this book." And I read this book, and it changed my life. And it was called No More Mr. Nice Guy, and it was written by
mm,
Dr. Robert Glover. And it doesn't mean you're not going to be nice. It's just that guys just go through their lives just being nice. And
yeah.
without accepting what they really want and who they are, and they've lost themselves. It's a really fascinating book. Every guy that I said, "Hey, you should take a read of this," they said, "That's me. There's parts of me that are me." And I've learned and started to work with men. I've created groups around this, or a group, so to speak,
Uh-huh.
that allows men to become more of who they are, which allows the women to become more of who they are. Women need a grounding rod in their world so they could express themselves more fully. It's very interesting dynamic because women have more high emotional energy, like they
Mm,
go higher, and men, when they are clear in who they are, it creates an element of trust because they'll push an energetic boundary. And men, if they crumble or they're not in it, it causes more challenges. It's
mm,
really interesting. And I see it in the nursing space because there's not enough grounding masculine energy in the field. And you could
mm.
how this hyper, the nursing field, let's be honest, is struggling. Like there hasn't been any changes in how we're not showing up to the table in certain ways that we should. We're eating our young. We've done it for years and nothing's
Mm-hmm.
really changed, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense at all.
Mm-hmm. 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 So as I'm listening to you talk about that, I get right away now why your newsletter is called The Man's Edge.
And why is that, you think?
I think because now you're talking about the energy, the grounding energy that is supposed to be give the man the I don't know if I want to use the word edge, but to give them that stable structure that that everything else gets to revolve around.
It's really interesting because I love that you pointed that out. Is if you, a lot of the people that have studied masculine in the space, and I've studied a lot of different authors and leaders, I've been part of groups, is men thrive when they're at their edge, when they're at a place that's full of exciting and a purpose and all of that. They thrive
Mm,
at that. And so
mm,
when they hold themselves back, they're just quietly suffering. They need a purpose. They need something to fight for. And oftentimes they fight for a woman, right?
mhm,
Like if you look in history, right? They fight for a meaning, a cause. And the woman shouldn't be that. There's
mm,
an edge. She should be along
mm,
the journey with and come with.
mm,
There's so many
mm,
dynamics. And it's funny, I've got more women that are interested in doing coaching and guidance with me for dealing
mm,
with themselves because honestly, because men haven't stepped into more of who they are, the women are trying to fix the men so that they could be more of who they are. And in reality, they could just learn to be who they are. And then the men, unfortunately, because we silently suffer, we gotta grind it out. We gotta just whatever. We just deal with it. It
mm,
takes an event for them to really do something about it, like a divorce or somebody's unfaithful or they lost their
mm,
job like this stuff, unfortunately, guys go down a little more of a road before they like, hey, I need some help. And they need the
mhm,
brothers. They need guys
mhm,
around them, solid guys, not guys that are out the bar doing crazy, nutty things, but maybe having fun once in a while. I'm not saying that, but they need some
mm,
solid men because there's no playbook that they've learned to run by.
mm. Okay. All righty. So, there's so many things you've done. If I could talk about all of them, I would. But your book, Unlocking Your Inner Hero, how'd that come about?
Well, it's really just a process that it's not really a published, like where I publish it.
Okay.
It's a process. It's called Interlocking the Inner Hero. And I walk people through more of who they are. It's more of a master engagement, a class, if you will.
Okay.
And
Got it.
so that came about because of my journey. Like, and I think a lot of people have various journeys, is that our pain and our painful life experiences are kind of our biggest opportunities for growth. Like they're the transformative process. And so when people could step into it and start to uncover what's showing up in their lives, it becomes more of that place of unlocking more of who they are. I think people show up trying to be perfect, trying to show up in a way, let me look good, right? And people don't like perfect, right? Like, have you ever been around somebody who's perfect? You're like, oh, years
Oh,
to
for
be
Pete's sake,
perfect,
right.
right? Like, or whatever. They're like, yeah, what's up with that? But more tapping into that and starting to explore what their unique value is, their unique edge or purpose.
Yeah.
That's really where the joy is, and that's where that came out of. So I utilize that a lot in a framework um, and walk through with that with people. So I haven't officially published anything. I'm actually doing
Mm,
some research on some things, which is really cool. So more to follow on that. But I use that and I put that blueprint that I've created because I have this through working not just with myself, but with working with a lot of people.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So having done all of these things, Todd, um, what would you say? What gives you the most satisfaction? What do you think of as your greatest achievement so far?
My greatest achievement. Um, I think my greatest achievement is just being fully alive. When I think what happens is when you face your death, because I've faced mine,
Mm-hmm.
you start to uncover a place that people often don't go, and they say they have and they think about it, but until you do, you really haven't.
Uh, yeah.
And you start to realize what really matters most, and what we think matters doesn't really matter. And I love watching people win and growing to more of who they are.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I think and I've dipped my toe in the nursing. I've been out of the nursing space for a bit. I've done medical device, I've created some businesses, I've been leaders for healthcares in different places. Um, and I coach people all over, and I happen to have attracted a few nurse professionals that were pretty stuck. I use a pretty interesting assessment tool that uncovers subconscious thought processes that are their habits of thinking that are driving their underlying behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so because I did it myself, because I was stuck in spaces. I was growing, but I couldn't go any higher. Like I was like, what's this like thermostat? Like there's just no matter what, right? And and I loved doing that. And I started to just see how people they just need some guidance, but they have to be open and curious and want that. And so that's been really my journey. And I've hit the nursing space because I've had some of the people, and I see certain areas where they have habits of thought and sabotaging processes that I thought were very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. You say something that I think is interesting. In fact, I wrote it because you said don't wait for change, create it and lead it. Not just create it, but lead it. And you talk about leading from the inside out.
Yes. You want to
How,
learn more about that?
well, just a little. Tell us a little, because that to me, when I read that, it said to me that was work. That was work that you did to get to this place where you express that don't wait for change, create it and lead it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think I think what happens is we're talking in the nursing space, right? So you want me
Mm-hmm.
to open up candidly about my thoughts on this. I write a lot of articles on LinkedIn, and
Mm-hmm.
they're very interesting because they've gotten a lot of, attention.
Yeah.
And I've put a little bit of a spin on it that people like it wasn't something that hit them really hard, but it was something to open their eyes. Was that we're as nurses we're like, oh, we're yelling in our echo chamber about like things needing to change.
Yes.
Have we been talking about that for decades? And have things
Mm-hmm.
really changed? Not really. If anything, they've gotten worse, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to think about this. And so we're keep like looking at an external thing to make us better. And so when we're looking at the external to make us better, that becomes we're a victim. We're a
Yeah.
victim of the situation. And as long as we blame or are looking at victimhood, we're at a place where we're not going to make anything viable. And
Yes.
so I started to write articles about like the healing of the inside out. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything needs to come from here. Like You get
Yes.
authors writing out there like, oh, nursing needs to be this, nursing needs to be autonomous. Meanwhile, we're not really showing up to the plate as autonomous type of people. I'm not saying over like
I get.
yeah, we're not showing up to the table. We're eating our young. We're
Hmm.
our leaders are,
Hmm.
what I like to say is we have traumatized people because let's be honest, we're nurses, we're caretakers, right? And if
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
look at the level of codependence, right, we're coming with our own trauma into
Yeah.
a field, right?
Hmm.
And we get traumatized in the field, and all of our behaviors as a result of this inner trauma starts to impact each other, and it goes sideways. I call it going sideways, right?
Hmm.
And we beat each other up, or we support, or we're overly nice and really we're not, and all this stuff that comes up, right? And really, the transformation is just inside of us and starting to learn about that. And I think we
Yeah.
are. I think we're getting to a place like, oh man, we got beat up here. We've got inner wounds. And then
Yeah.
what we have to do is start to look inside, and our lives tell a story. So when I say inside out, it's like if we could
Hmm.
heal from the inside, it helps the outside, but the outside teaches us it's a playground.
Hmm. It's a, yeah.
And so we have to do this. And so when I mean lead it, is we need to learn how to lead. I don't think nursing adequately prepares people to be leaders, just managers.
Hmm.
Here, let me promote another wounded. I say wounded because we come with our wounds. I'm not meaning
Hmm.
we're all
Yeah.
broken and we all have our things.
Yeah.
But as a burned out nurse, like, what am I going to do? We're broken here, and
Yeah.
then we promote up and get more education. We bring our brokenness to another leadership role or education role, and we check
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
We have this soul tiredness. I call it a
Yeah.
soul tiredness because we've been hurt. So we have to do this work for ourselves, and we start to do that. And I teach people relatively quickly of how to like not let stuff hit us in the core like it did. And
Yeah.
we start to transform, and we become, I call it the coffee bean. When you put water on it, it spreads.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
become the coffee bean where we start to spread this new way of
Facts.
being. And
Hmm.
to lead it by demonstrating and walking alongside people. So that's what I mean by that.
Awesome. 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 And I have to tell you that when you said soul tiredness, because that resonated so deeply with me because I have called it, I guess we've called it pretty much the same thing. I've called it cellular tired. I've said we've been tired at a cellular level. So I get it. I get it.
It's masked as laziness, but it's not, or it's like we're difficult, or there's so many signs and symptoms. You could call it trauma, you could call it whatever,
Yeah,
but it shows up, and until we honor it, but the question becomes is we can't run away from it.
that's right. That's the
And
thing.
and if you're broke, like I wrote an article where, how do we return to how does nurses return to a system that broke us? Because you have to work again. Or you're like, hey, what am I going to do? I'm going to start a coffee shop, or people are creating blogs and all kinds of
Mhm.
things, but they can't create the level. Well, I'm good at that. You got to learn to create a level of income that
Mhm.
supports your life,
That
right?
support. Yep.
Nurses do well. Like all of a sudden you spent all this money, college, education, and you're so fried out you can't do it anymore.
Okay.
Now
So knowing all of this and having been through all of this, if I came to you and said, I thought I want to be a nurse, what advice would you give me?
Um, I would say, why? First of all, like I want to know, like what's
Yeah,
inspiring you to do this, right? And I would say that you got to want to do it. And it's hard. Like nobody said nursing's easy, right? Like people are like,
mhm.
"Hey, we need to make nursing school easier." I'm like, "No, we don't." Like it's hard by design because you're dealing with people's lives
Exactly.
in critical moments. And if you can't handle it, then it's maybe not for you.
It's not for you. That's right. That's absolutely right.
Well,
And you need to know, and this needs to be something that resonates in your soul very early.
it does. And if you can't make the demands, like honestly, I don't know if you remember yours, but nursing school for me, it was a lot of work. It was hard. There was like so much information you had to do. You had to pass tests, you had to do this. It was hard. And I
Mhm.
had to step up and do hard.
You
And
have
I
to, yeah,
hear that one of my mantras is we do hard things because we have to
yeah,
do hard things.
because
Like
we have
life's not darn easy, right?
to. So, so speaking of hard and all of that, we're talking a lot these days about self-care. What
Hmm.
does it mean to you, and what do you do to care for you?
That's a great question. So, self-care is, it's funny. I've been coached and I coach people all the time. And people, some of the higher level coaches that I've worked with, they say, if your business and your life or your career is not going well, what's your self-care practice? That's their first question. So my self-care practice is it varies, but I have a self-care practice, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, yeah, hey, massages are great, for ladies, nails, those are great. You're taking care of yourself. But there's a deeper level of self-care that I look at because you have to start to regulate your nervous system. If you're traumatized, it shows up and it will continue to show up. You just need to learn
Mhm.
how to manage it and you need to learn to be aware of it. So I like to do a physical activity. I like strength, but I also like mindfulness and also breath work because those are things that I could do, right? Like
Yeah,
I'm not an
yeah.
alcohol drinker. I don't think that solves my problem, or
Mhm.
overall, I don't think it solves anybody's problem. And I don't think you're caring for yourself when you do that, but that's just my thought, right?
Right. That's actually just that's hiding.
Yeah. And like, think about it. The suicide rates and the addiction rates among nurses, and then you add men on that too. It's
Yeah.
just it's huge, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't think people realize the level of stress. Like we're along service workers, we're along first responders, we're all there. I think one of the things that I'm passionate about, and I'll talk about it here, and I don't often talk about it, it might be a future endeavor, is we often honor first responders and service members, and we should.
Mhm.
But we got a glimpse of what it was like during COVID in the States
Mhm.
of like, hey, thank you, our healthcare heroes.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
are healthcare heroes. And I've known in my own experience, and I've worked with healthcare professionals from a coaching perspective, that during that time of COVID, they were experiencing symptoms of battle fatigue.
Yes.
And good leaders in the world wars saw that in their people. And what did they do with them? They took them off the front line because they would hurt their team.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
intentionally, but because
But yeah.
symptoms. So when you look at it in that frame, we're a veteran of a war that is not a war, right? And we have
Mhm.
to honor that space and walk into it and start to honor and take care of ourselves. Like, how are we taking care of veterans? We're offering them trauma support. I'm
Yeah.
not a huge man, they're looking at alternative psychedelic therapies for trauma, suicide,
Mhm.
all that stuff. It's real. It's a real thing.
It's real. It's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Todd, thank you so much for this conversation. Any last words you want to leave us with?
No, we could have talked forever probably
We
here.
could have.
Sure. But, for nurses, do it. It's a great field. You could do so many different things and you could explore options, but take care of yourself and learn to start to take your own life, instead of being a victim of, to step into it and you could really have a great career and make some transformations. And it starts with us here.
It starts with us. It starts with us. That's a very good note to stop on. It starts with us. It does. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure.